Hello everyone. Just last week I put up a poll on my channel and I asked you if you think I should get a webcam to use during my videos. And the results came in and they were mostly positive, so I decided to go out and try to buy one online. So unfortunately, a lot of the popular brands such as Logitech webcams seem to be sold out pretty much everywhere. I checked Best Buy, Amazon, many popular retailers seem to have them sold out. So I decided to leverage my knowledge of programming with Amazon Web Services to build an application that would automatically figure out when a webcam comes in stock, and it would also send me a push notification to my phone via text message and also send me an email so I can run to my computer and buy it really quick. So that's what this video is going to be about, and I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. So here we go. Alright guys, here we are on my machine and I'm on the Best Buy website. I'm looking at purchasing a webcam here. For those of you that aren't familiar with Best Buy, if you're from North America, you probably already know it. But if you're not, it's just a popular electronics retailer where you can order all sorts of electronics goodies. So we can see here, this is the webcam I've been trying to buy. And if we look over here on the right hand side, it's sold out, and obviously that's a problem for me. I've been checking this thing pretty much once or twice a day for the past week, and I can't seem to find any that are in stock, no matter if I check it during the day or at night. So the goal of this program is going to be to automatically figure out when this comes back in stock, and it's going to send me an email and a SMS notification to my phone so that I can come here and purchase it when it comes back in stock. So when I was initially approaching this problem, how I initially thought I would do it is by using a browser scraping library. The most popular one in Python is called Scrapy or Scrapy. Another popular one is called Beautiful Soup that I've also used in the past. And how these website scraping libraries basically work is that they'll open a what we call a headless browser. So they won't actually open a browser, but they'll kind of mimic opening a browser, and it'll read the content off the web page, and you can kind of selectively tell it which element on this page you want it to read off of. So we would be interested in this one, obviously, to figure out if it's back in stock. If it is back in stock, we would be able to tell that by observing the text under this element. So that's how I was initially planning on doing this, but thankfully the folks at Best Buy have taken the approach of using a single page web app, using REST APIs to drive the content of their site. So I'm going to explain why that's a good thing for us right now. So I'm going to press F12. I'm on a Windows machine. That brings up the developer console. If you're on a Mac, I believe the equivalent command is Command-Shift-I. And we're going to make sure that we're on the network tab here and make sure we have the XHR filter selected. And I'm going to click on refresh here. And we're going to see a bunch of different API calls that are being made. Some of them, as we can see, are to get resources such as pictures that are used, I'm sure, somewhere on this website. Others are for config, and there's a whole bunch of different things that it's going to be doing here. The one that I stumbled upon is this products API that's being called. And if we look at the preview of the response of this API, we can see here, let me make this a bit bigger. We can see here that there's this object that has this thing availabilities in it. Let's expand this out. So it's an array, it's got one element in it. Let's click that. And inside here we get some nice metadata. We see it's out of stock for pickup. We see that it's in store and online. Everything looks good, but nothing about stock. Now if we expand shipping here and we scroll down, we can see here there's an interesting status. The status is sold out online, and the quantity is 0. Quantity remaining is 0. And what my hypothesis is that the response of this API is what is fueling this rendering of this text over here. So in order to prove or disprove that theory, I have another page opened up with the Apple Magic Mouse. And we can see here that this one is available online. And I'm going to do the same exercise here to see how the data differs. Again, I'm going to click on the refresh button on my browser. And let's look for that same API call, the products one, perfect. Do the same exercise, expand all this out. And we can see here that the status is in stock and the quantity remaining is 454. So this seems like the data that we want to extract and the API call that we want to make in order to tell if the quantity is anything greater than 1 or anything greater than 0 rather for this webcam that I'm trying to buy. So let's close this Magic Mouse thing and figure out how to do this. So let's scroll back to the API. So this was the call that was being made to get the data. So I'm going to right click on it over here and I'm going to go to copy and then copy link address. and I have Visual Studio Code open with a starter project that I initially set up. And what I want to do here is store that URL in a variable name. So URL equals this guy, okay? And then also that we make as part of this API call, if we go to the headers section, there's a bunch of request headers here that we get set on the request that's being made. Since I'm doing this programmatically, I want to make it look like I'm calling from a browser in case they have any kind of mechanism to check if it looks like this request is coming from a browser or from someone writing a script. So obviously I want to kind of cover my tracks here. So I'm going to take all of these fields and values and copy it into a Python object so that I can pass it in when I make that request. So I'm not going to bore you with the details. I'm going to go into VS Code now and do that, and I'll come right back when it's all done. All right, guys, so here I am in VS Code. I've extracted all the headers out of the request from my browser, and I've stored that in an object called headers. We're going to be using that as part of our request that we make to the API now. So let's just import some utilities that we need in order to make this happen. I have a env module here that contains my access key and my secret access key for my AWS role. And that role has the SNS publish permission associated with it, because we're going to be publishing to an SNS topic at a later point in this video where we want to actually notify my phone and my email that this has come in stock. If you don't know how to do that, or this sounds like gibberish, I'm going to put a video down in the description section below of how to get that set up on your AWS profile. So we have this env module loaded. That's great. We're also going to import the requests library. This allows us to make HTTP requests via Python. Also going to import the Json library that allows us to convert between strings and Python objects essentially, so that we can access the values on an object. And we also want to import Bodo3, which is a library that allows us to interact with AWS services. It's unique to Python, I believe. And the last one is we want the datetime object, or second last, I should say. We want to import datetime because we're going to be printing the date and time throughout this script. And the last one is time. So we're going to be using a bunch of different libraries here. I used pip to install most of these, specifically the Bodo3 and the request library. I believe those are the only ones that don't come as part of the Python core. So if you need to install that, you can use pip, or if you don't know what that is, you can go and download the Python file or the Python library for Bodo3 and requests and include that in the directory that you are working with. So back to the script now. So we have the URL of the endpoint that we want to hit. We have the headers that we're going to be making as part of the request. Have a little main function down here where we're going to be writing our code. The first task really is to make an API call to this endpoint to see if that works, right? So let's try and make that happen. So we're going to say response is equal to request.get. So we're going to be calling the get API, not a post or a put or anything like that. And we're going to put in that URL, the variable URL, not the string. And then we need to pass in an extra parameter headers. And we're going to say headers is equal to headers. So this is going to set the headers of this method to the headers object that we created, which again I extracted out of the browser when I was looking at the request in my browser. So that's going to make the initial API call. And then I already did this in advance, so I kind of know what the response is going to look like. Unfortunately, it's got a very funky response type that has a weird signature at the end. So we need to actually remove that. So I'm going to show you a quick little way I figured out how to do that. So say response formatted is equal to json.loads. And we're going to say response.content.decode. And we're going to put in UTF-8 signatures. We want to get rid of that signature. And then once we do, want to re-encode it back into UTF-8 to get it back into its normal form. So that is the way that we're going to parse this out. Now let's just print out response formatted here, just as a quick sanity check to see that everything is working before we move on to the next steps. I'm going to press Control F5 to run this guy, make sure this worked. Yeah, we got this massive object back that's pretty impossible to read. Just in this format. So let's go over to a JSON converter, click on process. Looks like it has some errors in the response here. I believe this is just because we're printing a JSON or printing a Python object. I don't think it's actually invalid. But again, we had availabilities, and then we had inside that was it was shipping, and then shipping, we were looking for quantity remaining. So these are the keys that we want to access when we are trying to read off of this file. So let's do that now. So let's say quantity is equal to response underscore formatted. We want to extract all those keys out so that we can get the real value from the response back, right? So I said availabilities. It was an array, and we were looking at the first row of that array, or the first entry of that array. And then we were looking at the shipping key, and inside that is the quantity remaining key. And that should give us the quantity that is currently in stock. So let's say print quantity now. And this should say 0 if everything is working correctly, because, well, unless this thing came in stock, in which case I'm going to cancel this video and go buy it. But this should say 0 if nothing changed. Let's save that, Command F5, run this again, and the quantity is 0. So this looks to be working correctly. So what we want to do now is pretty much set up an event loop so that we can periodically check if this thing becomes in stock, so if quantity is greater than 0, and then run a command to basically publish to some SNS topic to notify me. So let's do that now. So I'm going to keep that there, and we're going to initially start with quantity is equal to 0. So we're going to assume there's nothing in stock, right? And now let's say, I'm actually going to remove this. I'm going to copy it and then delete, because we're going to use that inside of our event loop. So we're starting with quantity is equal to 0. And let's say while quantity is less than 1, which is going to be true for while this thing is out of stock. So if it's ever greater than 1, then we're going to exit this loop and we're going to be done. So while quantity is less than 1, we want to attempt to make a call to figure out whether or not this thing is in stock, right? So let's make that call by just pasting what I had before. So now this is inside of the event loop. And let's create a second variable called attempts, just to keep track of how many times we're kind of entering and exiting this loop. So just kind of keep track of it so we can monitor the script as it runs. Okay, we're in this while loop response. We get the response, we format that out. Okay, so what do we want to do here now? So we want to move this up into the while loop, right? Because we want to now get the quantity out of this API call that we just made. We can delete quantity. And we can now say if quantity is less than 1, so after the API call is made, we'll reevaluate again if quantity is less than 1. And this basically means it's out of stock, right? So this is the out of stock flow. So we want to set a timer probably to sleep for some period of time. So let's do that. So let's do some light decoration here. We say the current time, the time is equal to a string plus string of date time dot now. So this is going to print out the current time. And let's say the attempt, and the attempt is equal to whatever my attempts is here. Actually, make that attempt. It's more meaningful. Okay, we just need to, this is an integer, so we need to convert that now using str. And that's all we really need to do here. So we're just going to print out the time, and we're going to print out the attempt that we are on. So two things we need to do now. We need to increment attempt, so attempt plus equals 1, and then we need to sleep for some period of time. I'm going to say, let's say 5 seconds. I think that's a pretty good number. You can introduce some jitter here, so you can kind of introduce some randomness, so you're not exactly calling every precisely 5 seconds. I'm a bit lazy, so I'm not going to do that. So this is the flow to basically wait for a period, and it's going to enter this loop again because the quantity is still less than 1, and then it's going to try and perform this operation once more. It's going to make that API call, again, reevaluate this. So if the quantity is not less than 1, so it's greater than 1, right? That's the jackpot. That's what we want. So that's the condition in which we are in stock, or the product is in stock that we're looking for. So let's say at this point we want to print out like, hey, it's in stock. And just for fun, let's print out what the quantity is, because if I get a notification for this, if the quantity is just 1, I need to rush really fast. But if it's like 10 or 20 or 100 or something, I can take my sweet time. So let's say, hey, it's in stock. Quantity is equal to plus string quantity. And this will tell me, I'll put this in the message as well that I send to myself, that the product came in stock and this is the quantity, right? And then let's kind of put a placeholder here for a method that's going to be called publish. And this is going to be the thing that publishes to me, to my SNS topic, which is going to be the thing that emails me. So let's define that method now, called publish. And so it's going to be an SNS client that does the publishing, since I'm publishing to an SNS topic. So we need to set that up. Let's do that now. So SNS underscore client is equal to boto3.client. And it is an SNS client, like I mentioned. The AWS access key is equal to env.access key, which I have in my env library. And the AWS underscore secrets access key is again equal to env.secret key. Okay, and then the region name that I am in is US East 1. If you're in a different region, you need to change that, obviously. So this is the client that we're going to use to publish, and then we need to specify the ARN, which I have in a variable. Actually, I didn't create the variable, but I can do that now. Let's say the ARN that we want to publish to is just a placeholder because we haven't created the topic yet. But let's just store that in a variable now. And let's say the response of the publish is going to be response equals SNS underscore client dot publish. And the topic ARN is going to be the ARN, which I still have blank for now. And then the message we're going to send is it's in stock, right? It's in stock. And let's just pass in the quantity here and quantity. And again, we're going to print out the quantity. Oops. Quantity equals quantity. So this looks right to me, so that's perfect. The only thing that doesn't look right is that we don't have the ARN created correctly. So let's go over to AWS now. Actually, before I do that, let's just print out the response so we can take a look at if it sent that correctly once this flow is entered. So let's go to AWS now. We're going to create an SNS topic. I'm going to subscribe myself. Okay, so let's go over and do that now. Let's create the SNS topic. So here I am in my AWS account. I'm going to click on create topic here in the top right. Let's call this the in stock topic. Click on create topic. And let's create some subscriptions now. So the first one is just going to be to my email, which is awssimplified@protonmail.com. If you're setting this up for the first time, you need to go to your email and verify that you want to be subscribed by clicking a link, just like a traditional email verification thing. I'll do that kind of aside of this video, so you don't have to watch me go through the motions there. I'm going to click on create subscription. And the second subscription we want to make, go back to topic, back into that guy, click on create subscription, and we want to do to SMS, and I'll just put my phone number in here. So this, and we're going to click on create subscription now. So now our subscription is created to my email and to my phone. So if I publish to this topic now, I should get a message to both. So let's just go and publish a message now, and I'll go and confirm this first in my email just to make sure that I have the subscription set up correctly, and then I'll publish it. I'll be right back in a minute, guys. All right, guys, so here's the subscription confirmation. I'm just going to click on this guy. It's going to say it's confirmed. That is great. So everything seems to be set up correctly. Let's just publish a quick message to this to make sure this works, and put in whatever you want. Doesn't really matter. Click on publish message. So my phone just buzzed with that sample message. That's great. I'm sure it got sent to my email as well. So we're able to move on to the next step now. Let's take the ARN out of this guy. Go back to VS Code. And where did I put the ARN? It was over here. So now we have the ARN set up. So let's just review what we did. So we imported a bunch of libraries. We got the URL from the Chrome browser by looking at the request tabs. We got the headers out of the request that was made. We defined the quantity that we're going to be using to evaluate whether or not this thing is in stock, and we're keeping track of the attempts. And while our quantity is less than 1, we're going to be making a HTTP call to that URL. We're going to extract the response, determine the quantity. If the quantity is still less than 1, that means we need to loop back and just wait for a period of time and retry. So we print out just what time it is and what attempt number we're on. We increment the counter, we sleep for a little while, and if we enter this else loop, it means that the quantity is greater than 1, which means that it's in stock, in which case we publish. And we publish to an SNS topic, which I have just hooked up to my phone and my email. So if everything worked correctly, this should run, and we should just see an event loop every 5 seconds saying that the time is such and such, and the attempt is incrementing by 1 every time. Hopefully there's no errors. Let's see. Okay, so it looks like I got pretty lucky. Usually this doesn't work the first time. So we see the time, and then we're just going to keep on looping over and over and over again until it becomes in stock. So I'm just going to leave this thing running basically for a few hours. If you really want to get fancy, then you can set up this script on a EC2 machine on AWS and then just run it there so you don't have to leave your computer on. But for me, I don't expect this to take very long, so I'm just going to let this run for a little while, and I will come back a little bit later to see what's going on. What is going on, guys? So I let this run for about 30 minutes, maybe 45. I kind of lost track of time. And I was sitting on the couch and my phone just buzzed, and it was a nice message saying that there were 6 items in stock, as we can see here. So I quickly rushed over to the Best Buy website and I purchased one. Thankfully, I was in time because now if you go back over to the website, you can see that it's sold out online once more. So it looks like I was just in the nick of time. So hopefully this video showed you some kind of practical applications on how you can use AWS. If you liked it, make sure to check out my other ones on my channel. I have many more on just tech in general and also AWS. Also, please don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss out on next week's video. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll see you next time.